I'm currently on board one of the biggest and most exciting cruise ships in the world, staying in a luxury ship within a ship area that only 5% of the guests have access to. I've been cruising since I was a child. This was my 8th MSC cruise, but this trip blew my mind in so many different ways. Before this, I really had no idea what to expect from a luxury ship concept. I usually cruise as cheaply as possible. I knew that I wanted to try it, but I had no idea what the benefits would be or if this way of cruising would suit me at all. The reality was really not what I expected, and I was surprised by new things every single day. I've wanted to go through the MSC Yacht Club doors since my first MSC cruise in 2012. I hoped that it would live up to what I had built up in my mind. I really did feel like an undercover budget cruiser, but I was determined to find out what all the hype was about so that I could show you here. From the moment I set foot in the terminal, it was very obvious that this cruise would be very different. Our cabin came with the perk of priority boarding. I was expecting perhaps to join a shorter line, but once we introduced ourselves to the crew at the special tent, he took our bags and called over another staff member who said that he would escort us through the terminal. I've never been escorted anywhere in my life, and it was so much fun. Weird for sure, but lots of fun. We didn't have to wait at any point and only very briefly took a break for a glass of champagne in a special part of the terminal. That one is optional, of course, but I thought to myself, why not? If I'm going to experience this, I'm going to experience it properly and I'm going to try everything. The staff gave us our cruise cards and MSC wristbands, and they even put my wristband on my wrist for me. That really was a sign of things to come, but at this point, I had no idea what the week would be like. The ship I was boarding was MSC's Euribia, launched in 2023. She is a seriously big cruise ship coming in at 331 meters long, which is about the same as if you lined up 33 London buses in a row. In total, she can hold over 6,000 guests, and I embarked in the wonderful Copenhagen. It was here that we met our butler. I've never had a butler before. I've never even considered the possibility of having one, so I wasn't really sure what I would have him do for me. I'd heard lots of things about what other people have their butlers do for them, but I was planning to just go with the flow. I really had no idea. I did like the white gloves though. They were very cool and everyone was immaculately dressed. I did wonder if this would be reflected in the actual cruise. I didn't want to feel out of place or it to feel stuffy or awkward, but only time would tell. Our butler brought us up to deck 16. Guests staying in this part of the ship do have priority on the front elevators, so we didn't stop anywhere else on the way. The butler even pressed the buttons for us with those nice white gloves. I took my first MSC cruise way back in 2012, and I've always wanted to go through these special doors. I usually stay in the cheapest cabins. I cruise on a budget, so being able to open them, it just felt like magic. As soon as we walked in, there were staff saying welcome and good morning. I could see other people being shown around by their butlers, and I thought I can get used to this. This is the life. After a quick tour of the lounge, the restaurant and the cabin, we were shown to the pool deck on the top of the ship. It was around 12:30 by this time, so we could smell the food cooking on the grill, which was brilliant. I felt like one of those cartoon characters that kind of floats along following a smell. That was me. Lunch was fantastic, and the pool deck felt very luxurious. There were so many comfortable lounges. There were some that were more like sofas, and others with tables, which is where we ate our lunch. This area is protected from the wind nicely, and even the pool towels, they felt so fancy. I could probably stay up in this area for the entire 7-night cruise. You can tell that this is luxurious because just look at the ketchup. Also up here was a swimming pool for the MSC Yacht Club guests and a bar that has the fastest service on the ship by far. When I cruise, I normally don't buy a drinks package, but all guests staying in this part of the ship have the full premium extra drinks package included in the cruise fare. Wi-Fi is also included too, and lots of other perks like free room service that I would make sure that I made the most out of. It was nice knowing that we could order pretty much anything for the entire week and we wouldn't have to worry about it. I was determined to experience as much as I could on this cruise, and that meant outside of where we were staying too. I knew that it would be tricky to do everything I wanted to do in 7 days, but in my head I had a plan to see lots of entertainment, to do specialty dining, to even take a trip to the spa, which is not something that I normally do. When our stomachs were full, we decided to head out. MSC's Euribia is the newest cruise ship in the fleet, and heading down into the main street, it definitely felt new. The ship was beautifully clean and sparkly. MSC cruise ships never really do lose their sparkle, of course. The oldest ship I sailed on was the MSC Opera, built in 2003. We had a great time on that cruise, but there really is something special about new cruise ships. You may think that it's the new cruise ship smell, but it definitely isn't, because all MSC cruise ships smell the same. They have a very distinctive smell, and you can actually buy it in the gift shops. I have it in my bathroom at home actually. It's not quite the same as being on a cruise, but if you do close your eyes while you're in the bath, you can imagine. To walk through this main promenade was so exciting. On the ceiling there's an LED dome that stretches right the way from one end of the ship to the other. They use this screen to put on shows, and every day I would just look forward to seeing what was up there. I think this is probably my personal favourite. They would have whales that would swim by. It is a bit weird when you think about it. I'm on a ship looking up at a whale, but it was really cool, and this area was the heart of the ship. The screen does have practical uses too, and because this was our embarkation day and it was safety drill time, it showed us where we needed to go. All that we had to do was watch a video on our cabin TV explaining about the safety procedures on the ship, and then we would check in to our muster station. Ours was the theatre, and I was so excited to come back here later in the cruise to watch a few shows. I always love watching theatre shows on cruise ships, and I'd heard that there was a different show every single day. I'd also heard that there were seats set up just for guests of MSC's Yacht Club, so I was really looking forward to that. I've never made it past those velvet ropes before, and this cruise I guess was as good a time as any. Along the main street there are shops, bars and restaurants. On the upper level I spotted a personal favourite of mine, the pub. On MSC cruises, for all guests there is at minimum a main dining room, a buffet and a poolside grill available. For guests in the MSC Yacht Club there's a separate restaurant with a different menu each night and a grill up on the top deck. There really is no need to pay extra for food on this ship, but specialty restaurants are just that, they're a little bit special. Usually they'll be on a theme like a steakhouse or Mexican. On this cruise I had the 3 specialty meal package, meaning that I could eat in 3 of the restaurants that normally cost extra. I saw a couple in the street, so I had a quick look at the menus. I love being able to see menus ahead of time, and they were also available inside MSC's app. The app is totally free to use, and there's a messenger part where you can message other people on the cruise. You can also see your onboard account and any announcements or if there's anything important. The app worked perfectly for us, and it was the default thing that we would check if we wanted to know what the schedule was. Heading down the central street, we found the first of the Swarovski crystal staircases. I really struggle with that word for some reason, I don't know why. These are real crystals, and I would come back to these staircases later for photos on formal night. The sun was shining as we sailed away from Copenhagen, so we decided to head up and out to have a look at the top decks. This is a seriously impressive cruise ship. I think if aliens came down to Earth and they wanted to see what cruising was all about, this would be the ship that I would show them. There is so much outside space, and I think if you drew a picture of a cruise ship, this is the kind of design and the shape that it would probably have. They actually did do a competition to decide on the hull artwork, and I love what they chose. The ship says "Save the Sea" on the side, and it's a nod to MSC's dedication to the marine ecosystem. They do lots of interesting things on board, and they do things like test the conditions of the water where the ship is sailing. Right in the middle of the ship there are 2 big swimming pools that are normally heated to at least 25 degrees Celsius, which is 77 Fahrenheit. Around that were lots of sun loungers and seats. The whole area is looked over by a bar called the Sky Lounge, so we headed in there for a drink. It's one of my MSC favourites. I love watching people have a good time on cruise ships, and there were people enjoying the hot tubs, people taking pictures with their ice creams. It was just lovely. Our cruise was taking us for 3 days in Norway and then on to Germany. Interestingly, not everyone who was on this cruise had embarked today. The main embarkation point on this cruise is Kiel in Germany, so the majority of the guests on board were German. I did also hear French and Spanish being spoken, but this was just the tip of the iceberg. I was basically collecting languages as the cruise went on, and that was really fun. As dinner time approached, we headed back to our restaurant. There are no fixed dining times here, you just show up whenever the restaurant is open and you are seated. There's no table sharing, nothing scary like that. The restaurant itself is beautiful with white tablecloths and real physical menus. The chairs were really comfortable and they have lots of different sizes of tables. We were shown to our table and given the menu in English, but they do have them in lots of different languages. Because everyone in this part of the ship has a drinks package included, there was never any need to show our cruise card. When we wanted a drink in the rest of the ship, we would show our card or we would use this wristband. The wristband could be used to open our cabin door too, and also those all-important doors that I normally can't get through. The view from this restaurant was incredible. I don't think I can think of anywhere better to eat dinner, particularly when cruising through the Norwegian fjords. The windows stretch right the way around the ship, and I love how the lounge and the restaurant are double level, joined of course by another crystal staircase. We'd often walk down here after dinner to make our grand entrance into the lounge below where we'd have a drink. I went for the asparagus, chicken Kiev and chocolate souffle, all of which were great. I thought the portion sizes were perfect and the service could not have been better. The bread in here was so good. I mean, look at this. This is my bread basket of dreams. The dining room is open for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and we came back here later in the cruise for dinner and also for lunch. In true British style, I headed to the pub next. The pub on board is called Masters of the Sea, and there is seating both inside and outside. Inside, they would often have live music, and they would of course show some sports. I love the decor of these pubs. I think this is spot on, and there are so many interesting things to sit and look at. Sometimes we would play games on these booth tables, and here I found my favourite drink on the ship, the mango mojito. The drinks package that we had included all drinks up to €14. I never found anything above that price, and my most popular drink order was a Coke Zero. The staff always asked if we wanted ice, which was good because I very rarely do, and the Coke came straight from a can and you got the entire can every time. It might sound like a small thing, but it matters. Our favourite place on the ship to enjoy a drink was the Carousel Lounge, and this is where we went next. It is a absolutely massive lounge at the back of the ship with the most amazing windows. There are so many different seating areas, and because everything is kind of split and staggered, it was a really lovely place to sit when we'd just come back from a port. There were loads of corners that you could kind of snuggle into, and you could just sit comfortably looking at the view. They do have snacks in here too during the day, which is always a nice option. In the evenings, they do host shows in here, and that was what we were here to see. It did get pretty busy when the shows were on, but there was a good flow of people coming in and leaving, so we could always get a seat. We did find it fastest to pick up a drink at the bar before the show started, but there is table service too. I saw the show advertised as a big band, and I had plenty of people tell me that this is the thing that I must see on the ship. I really didn't expect the band to be as big as it was. It was seriously impressive. As we sat a bit further into the lounge, we could see the screens, which would change with every song. MSC have definitely invested a lot of money into technology on their ship, and it really does make a real difference. The performances had such a wow factor. The big band play twice a night most nights, and they have a different theme for each show. The show that we watched was the rock show, and the singers and the musicians, they were all great. All the songs were sung in English, despite the audience being from lots of different countries. I was wondering how that would affect the entertainment, but so far, other than not being able to listen into other people's conversations, I hadn't really noticed it. We'd had an early start, so we decided to head to bed after the show. My cabin is called a deluxe suite, and it is by far the best cabin that I've ever stayed in. I will be bringing you a full video about that, so please check that you're subscribed, but for now, all that you need to know is that I had the best sleep ever. There is nothing quite like that sleep on the first day of a cruise. You're tired, but you're so excited about what's to come. The next day we had a sea day, which was great. I started the day with room service pancakes and fruit, which felt like such a treat. I never normally do room service or breakfast really, but it was included in my cabin, so I thought I would give it a go. Laying in the bed and eating was so comfortable. I had my MSC Yacht Club robe on. I would never dream of eating in my bed at home through fear of dropping something, but that is the amazing thing about being on a cruise. If I did drop something, I could have the bedding changed. It would be no big deal. I do like a sea day to start the cruise, as it's a chance to properly explore the ship and to learn my way around. I knew that it was formal night tonight and that I'd booked a specialty restaurant for dinner. Heading up and out the ship, we went towards the aft. At the back here there is the most amazing wake view and the ropes course that is up on the top deck. I have done this ropes course before on board the MSC Meraviglia, and it might not look too high from down here, but you've got to remember that this is on top of a cruise ship, and you can see that when you're up there. I was very brave though, and I did make it all the way around. I didn't need to be rescued. The ropes course is completely included in the cruise fare, and there are so many things for kids to do on a ship like this. They have a sports court, an arcade, and even a bowling alley. There's a massive splash area on the top, and also water slides. Our butler butler actually booked us a time slot to go bowling later in the cruise and did escort us there, but more about that later. MSC Yacht has a big casino which was open because it was a sea day. For tax reasons, shops and casinos are only open when ships are sailing, so it's a very popular thing to do. I spent the €10 I usually do on cruises, and I did not win this time, but maybe next time. The casino is completely non-smoking, which I think is good. There are smoking areas near the casino, just out the sides of the ship, and there's another up on the top deck. In the MSC Yacht Club area, there's also another smoking section too. In the main street, there were lots of shops, with my favourite being the MSC Foundation shop. Everything in here, all of the profits go to charities that focus on 4 areas. Those 4 areas are environmental conservation, education, emergency relief, and community support. They do support Mercy Ships, which is the charity that we've been fundraising for the last couple of years on this channel. Wandering around the ship, I noticed multiple crew members polishing the mirrors and the banisters on the stairs. I can't even imagine how long that must take, but it was always flawlessly clean, so it must work. I always think it's the people who are doing those jobs who are the real unseen heroes of cruises. They deserve 1,000 thank yous. The buffet is located on deck 15, and we decided to stop here to grab lunch. Lunch on a sea day is by far the busiest time for a cruise ship buffet because everyone is on board, but even still we didn't struggle to get a seat. My favourite snack to grab was actually the panna cotta in these little pots. There would be different flavours every day and they were just so good. I'm not sure why, I'm not normally a panna cotta girl, but these changed my mind. We would often come to the buffet around 5 or 6 p.m. for dinner, and it would be surprisingly quiet at that time. I suspect that's due to the fact that most people on this cruise ate later, around 7 or 8, but that is a big benefit of cruising with people from different countries who like to do different things. If this was an entirely British ship, I'm sure more people would have been eating at 6 p.m. MSC have lots of different types of pizza available here, and one that is a little bit out of the ordinary is charcoal pizza. I tried a slice and it tasted good. The same as regular pizza, to be honest. I'm not sure that if I was blindfolded, I would be able to tell the difference between the two. I ate so much mozzarella on this cruise though. Every time I went through the buffet, I had to add some to my plate. They make it on board and it's just so good. The buffet itself was absolutely huge and it stretched along both sides of the ship and around the back. The service in here was always good, and it would only be a few seconds after putting down our dirty plates that they would be taken away. There was also bar service in here too, and I did press the little button. At the back of the buffet there's an outside seating area which I love. It's a great place to enjoy a random cup of tea or a mozzarella ball, whatever floats your boat. MSC are a very relaxed, casual, fun cruise line, but they do have one formal night per week. This is more of a suggested dress code rather than enforced rules, but I did decide to get changed for dinner. I picked my sparkly blue dress and our butler escorted us down to Olla Tacos and Cantina, a specialty restaurant that our butler had booked for us. He pressed all the buttons in the lift, he led the way, he talked to the staff in the restaurant. I felt like a kid who was being dropped off to a birthday party. It was really nice. Our butler said that he would be back to pick us up after dinner, as we mentioned that we would like to go and see the theatre show next. I wanted to try out those special seats, so that was exciting. I've been to Olla Tacos and Cantina on other MSC cruise ships in the past, and it's always been a favourite of mine. Usually you order lots of small things to share, and I ordered some tacos and nachos. I really ate until I couldn't eat anymore. I didn't even have room for dessert. I was just so full of cheese. I made my choice though, and I have no regrets. I picked the cheese. On our way to the theatre, our butler suggested that I might like to have some formal night photos taken. This isn't something that I normally do, but that is the fun of having a butler. I decided to give it a go because I was dressed up anyway. I don't think I would normally choose after eating so much cheese as the time to have my photo taken, but I think the photo that I picked came out pretty well. The photographer was getting me to do all kinds of really weird poses, but that was good because it made me laugh. The couples poses are always the weirdest, with your hands on each other's faces and strange kind of things. The sparkly staircases were a great location for the photo shoots. Normally on MSC cruises you have to book the theatre shows. It's really easy to do in the app, but one perk of being in MSC's Yacht Club was that there was a corner of seats just for guests staying there. It certainly was an experience to get to sit behind the velvet rope. and I loved it. They did release the seats in here when the show started, if there were any spare, which I think is good. The theatre shows were really popular, and I wouldn't want someone to miss out on seeing the show when there was a spare seat next to me. The shows were usually around 40 minutes long, and I really enjoyed them. Each show had a different theme. We had a rock show, an illusionist, an Ed Sheeran show, and even more. There were lots of really impressive acrobats, knife throwing, interesting costumes. The theatre show did become quite a part of our routine as the cruise went on, and after dinner I would always look forward to them. There are so many lounges on board, but we decided to head back up to our own lounge on deck 16. I'd heard that they had live music in here every night, and that was right. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but fine. I sat on my favourite sofa, and it was the most relaxing place to be. We spent quite a few evenings in here because the service was so good, it was really comfortable, and they would quite often bring out snacks. Even the chocolate seemed happy to be here. I did find out about 4 days into the cruise that these crisps, the flavour that they give you by default, it is caviar flavour. I'm sure you can ask for almost any flavour, but I'm not a regular eater of caviar, so I really didn't know that that was the flavour. We had 3 port stops in Norway on our itinerary: Ålesund, Nordfjordeid and Flom. I have been to Ålesund before, but in winter, and this was like a completely different place. I didn't need my snow boots this time, and it was even warm enough to take off my jumper. I love it here. Jumper is your Britishism of the week, and we might have had this one before, but it comes up every single day in my comment sections, and it's a very important one. A jumper is basically that layer that goes between your t-shirt and your coat. I would say it's an umbrella term. I would call something like a cardigan, a hoodie, anything, a sweater, I would call that a jumper. I'm sure other people have their own definitions, but that is mine. I'm not really a big breakfast person, but what did become a habit was going up to the pool deck to grab some food before going off in the port. It was really lovely and quiet up here, and it was just the best place to start the day. The ice buns, they're my favourite. During port days, I would take advantage of the empty ship to film areas like this inside pool called the bamboo pool. I love this space and the general design. It always smelt so nice in here, and it felt kind of tropically warm. There are lots of chairs split over the 2 levels and whirlpools too. There was always a lifeguard on duty and also a bar where you could get a drink. To the side of the main pool deck, there were the most amazing huge whirlpools which have the best view on the ship. It is so crazy to me that I went bowling on a cruise ship is a sentence that I can say, but that is absolutely true. I was fully prepared to blame any bad scores I got on the fact that we were on a ship, and I'm not sure if that applies because we weren't actually sailing at the time. Still, I did do a lot better than I expected, and I managed to record myself getting this strike, so that is all I need to show you, and you can assume that I got a strike every single time. Spoiler alert, I did not. One thing I loved about this setup was that it tried to tell me what to do to hit the rest of the pins down, like it thought the only thing holding me back was a lack of knowledge, which it definitely isn't. My problem is trying to get the ball where I want the ball to go. There is an extra charge for bowling, and you can either just pay for this or you can buy what is called a fun pass. The bowling is in an area of the ship that's full of VR simulators, there's F1 cars, and there's loads and loads of arcade games. I was very happy to find out that you can wear your own shoes when bowling. I don't know why, but wearing other people's shoes, that's just a bit weird to me. Our next port was Nordfjordeid, and that is one that I've never been to before. We had an early morning excursion leaving at 7:30, and we hoped that this would mean that we would miss out on most of the rain because the weather forecast was not looking good. We'd been so lucky in Ålesund and were fully prepared for rain every single day. Norway is fantastic, but the climate is very similar to the UK. Luckily for me though, humans are waterproof and I had packed a coat. My amazing butler also carried an umbrella for me as he escorted me off the ship. It is really weird to hear myself say sentences like that, but it was all in the name of research. Our tour took us along the panoramic road to a lovely little place called Stryn. We made lots of stops to have a look at the view, and I got to use one of the coolest toilets. This is an example of what I love about Norway. Everything is so clean and so tidy, even this random traditional toilet in the middle of nowhere. We also saw beautiful churches and hotels. Every view was amazing, and it was just such a peaceful place to be. It's hard to believe that this is real. After the excursion, we had free time to explore, and this was the first time I got a real proper good look at the ship from a distance. I loved the look of the reflections in the water, but the best views were still to come. One of my favourite things about staying in MSC's Yacht Club was that when we reboarded the ship in ports, we would look for this golden paddle, and we were either taken to the front of the queue or we might board the ship in a completely different place entirely. I did think that it might be weird, but when it was raining, I was very grateful for it. Heading back to the ship, we decided to order room room service lunch. We ordered a club sandwich and a barbecue wrap, both of which were great. Having this seating area in our cabin really made it a nice place to enjoy a meal, and later in the cruise we did also enjoy a pizza here. The pizza actually came in a proper pizza box, which was nice, and it was so good that I didn't even dip it in ketchup, like I normally would with pizza. The portion size was perfect, and I'm very glad that it wasn't any bigger because it did not take us long to find our next meal. Every day in the Topsail Lounge there was afternoon tea from 4 to 5, and there were only about 6 of us in there on the day that we decided to go, so it felt very exclusive. We were given the most adorable 3-layer cake stand with sandwiches, scones and cakes on top, and I decided to have a cup of tea called First Romance, whatever that means. On the top level was the cutest cookie that I ever did see. It seemed like a cookie that Stuart Little would eat or some kind of other small animal. It was at this point I decided that I should ask my butler for cookies in my cabin. They weren't on the menu or anything, but I knew that butlers could do that kind of magic. A plate of cookies arrived shortly after, and another plate arrived the next day. It was truly amazing. I'm afraid I can't really join in on the jam or cream debate because I put jam on one half, cream on the other, and then eat it like a sandwich. That's just how I've always done it. That's always been my favourite way. I didn't know that was not the done thing. You do have to dislocate your jaw like a snake a little bit, but it is so worth it. Our next port stop might be my favourite port in Norway. It's a small port, but it really just feels like another world to me. It's like being in a movie. I noticed that the windows on the octopus here, they look like eyes. Let me know if you can see that. The colours of the ship against the sea and the grass and the lifeboats, it was just so pretty. The sail away from Flomp was magical. I'm not sure there is any other words that could describe it. We first started watching from our pool deck, but then we did head out to see what else was happening around the ship. We found live music at the aft pool, and the atmosphere here was great. It was so fun. For me, this did feel like a lovely warm day. I was just wearing a dress most of the time, but most of the other guests were wrapped up in coats. That's always one thing I enjoy about cruises where there's multiple nationalities on board. We all react to the same weather very differently. Our cruise definitely never felt too formal or stuffy. Most of the time I was just wearing my trousers and a t-shirt or shorts. I did wear quite a few dresses too, but everyone seemed very relaxed. I did worry pre-cruise that being in a more premium luxurious area of the ship might mean that the dress codes were stricter, but that was not the case at all. I think there is a luxury in being able to decide what you wear, and that suited me perfectly. In total, there were 68 different nationalities on this cruise, which I just think is amazing. All of the crew on board spoke English by default, but there would be occasions where we couldn't understand other guests. What is amazing though is that you really don't need to speak the same language to understand each other in a lot of situations. You can always tell when someone is saying thank you when you've let them go in the corridor, even if you have never heard those words before, you don't know what the language is, you can still work it out. I was constantly amazed by the crew who could switch between so many languages. We had a welcome on board party where the cruise director and the captain spoke to us. They would so easily switch between about 5 different languages, which was just mind-blowing. I am so impressed. I can only speak English and I'm struggling with that quite often. For our dinner, we headed to the grill. My salad starter was absolutely massive and all of the food was great. These chips were the best. I could not finish them. I was too full and I still miss them and I still think about them. In my defense though, I was saving room for a giant cookie for dessert, which was very, very important. I would have been quite happy even if I'd just been left with this bread basket for dinner because the bread was warm. It came with 2 different types of butter. It was brilliant. I thought I was full when I came out of this meal, but that was nothing compared to tomorrow's lunch. In the main street, we found that there was a street party happening. We didn't know that it would be there just because we hadn't looked at the daily schedule recently, but this is the type of random fun thing that just pops up on MSC. I would think it would be nearly impossible to be bored on an MSC cruise. Here is a preview of the daily schedule, so you can have a look. If you were ever bored, you could just ask every passenger and every crew member to teach you one word in their language, and then you would be entertained for literally years, and you'd be very smart. It was only at times like this that we saw big groups of people together. It was so much fun to watch everybody dancing and having a good time, but we found it quite easy to find quieter areas if we didn't want to take part. We would often be upstairs in the pub with a drink, looking down on whatever was happening, and that suited me perfectly. We were so lucky this evening to see the sunset over the pool deck. For me, this was a real pinch me kind of moment to be in a place like this, enjoying this trip. It was pretty mind-blowing. Thinking back to me in 2012 when I took my first MSC cruise with my family, I would never, ever, ever have imagined that I would be staying here now in the MSC Yacht Club of all places. It is entirely thanks to your support that I got to experience this, and I cannot thank you enough. The next morning I woke up and I did something that I don't normally do when I cruise. I put on my bikini and I headed to the thermal suites. Our butler said that the best time to go would be on a port day early in the morning, and he was absolutely right. There was nobody else there at all. Just one crew member, but I think they have to be in there for safety reasons. The thermal suite is an area full of saunas, steam rooms, ice rooms, showers, hot beds, jacuzzis. I had a great time enjoying these lovely warm spaces, but then I thought to myself, that walkway looks interesting. The lights are different colours. I wonder what that's about. I saw a sign that said cold walk and I decided to press the button and to walk in. I should have expected it to be cold, really, but it did take me by surprise that every shower I went through got colder and colder and colder. It was very refreshing, I think I'll say that. Once you're in there though, I suppose you could turn around and go back, but I was not about to quit halfway, so I kept going. I really did love wearing my robe. It has this gold part on the front, and it felt like I had a gold sticker on me, a gold star. After all that relaxation and refreshment, we headed to a specialty restaurant called Kato Sushi and Robotanaki for lunch. This was a 7-course Japanese meal, and my goodness me, I thought I would have to roll myself down the stairs after this. I was so full. The food just kept coming and coming. Everything was fantastic, and my only regret was that I filled up too much too early and I didn't pace myself. 7 courses, that is a lot though. When I cruise, I usually like to take the stairs, but there was no way that I was walking back after this meal. Luckily for me though, I had priority access in the lifts. It was having small benefits like this that really made the biggest difference to me on this cruise. Having our own pool deck and lounge to come back to after we've been out and had our fun on the ship, that part was really fantastic. I've given you a little preview of the MSC Yacht Club spaces in this video, but there is so much more to show you. To learn about all of the perks, including those that I didn't take advantage of, like having my suitcase repacked, check out this video next. You'll also see events in here that I've not mentioned in this video, and this is over on the MSC Cruises YouTube channel, which is so exciting. So please head over there and let them know that I sent you. Thanks.